Okay, welcome to 4.1 trigonometry, solving for angles, lengths, and distances. So you have a cheat sheet that I've provided on the whiteboard, and to solve for angles, to solve for lengths, and to solve for distances, basically you need to know the primary function of trig, the secondary function of trig, and then the Pythagorean theorem. And that's all trigonometry in this course. The other thing that you need to know is that we're going to be doing two triangle trig, so stuff that looks like this, two triangles. Okay, for trigonometry, what type of triangles do we care about only? Yeah, it has to be a right triangle. If you do not see a right triangle and it's like a question that I've given you on a test, you may have to draw a line or something to make a triangle, a right triangle. So for example, say they gave you a question like this. Is this triangle right angled? Is that triangle got a right angle in it? No. So you might have to do something fancy, like drop a vertical line at a right angle. Now you have two triangles that are both right angled. There's a triangle there and a triangle there. Does that make sense? So you cannot do this kind of stuff, the sine, cos, tan business. You cannot do that unless it has a right angle. You have to have a 90-degree square angle. Is that clear? And then we can move on. Okay, on Friday after the test I reviewed op, adj, and hype with you. Okay, so let's do that one more time. Mark the angle, right, just like on the board. Number one, find the angle, go across, that is your opposite, which we're going to label OPP, op. Number two, find the 90, go straight across from that. That is your longest side. The HYP stands for hypotenuse, or the hype. And then that means there's only one side left over, so it has to be the adjacent. You always have two choices for the angle, okay? See how we use this angle down in the corner? What other angle could you use? The angle in the other corner. Okay, you never use the right angle. You only have the two acute angles that you can try. Okay, so if I mark this angle up here, X, and I go straight across, what does this side at the bottom now become? Up. And is the hype still the hype? Good. Will the hypotenuse ever change? No. So what can change is the opposite and adjacent. So they're relative. Okay? Here, I'll give you an example. And I'm just making these numbers up, okay? So for example, what is sine 30? And I'm just making these numbers up. This is not actually mathematically correct. I'm just making these numbers up. Actually, maybe instead of, I'll just use letters instead of numbers. That way there's no confusion. So 90 degree in the corner, angle X, angle Y, and we'll go A, B, C like that. Okay, so sine X. What does the sine ratio tell me to do on the board here? Take the opposite side and divide it by the hypotenuse side. So which side is opposite X? Which side is opposite x? A, B, or C? Opposite x. So straight across. Like, good. So straight across. So B goes on top. And then the hypotenuse is C. And we always put a 1 underneath there to help. Now what about sine y? What would sine y be? Good. Some of you are quite quick at this, which is good to see. Straight across from the y is A. The hypotenuse stays the same. So sine y would be A over C. What do they have in common? C. Hypotenuse won't change. But if you change the angle inside your triangle, the opposite would change. The formula always stays the same. It's always op divided by hype. Always. Op divided by hype. But if you use x, B is op. If you use y, A is op. Is that clear? I know it's kind of a silly question. Is that clear? But what I'm trying to say is that if you can't set up, it's like there's no chance. Like if I can't tie my skates to go play hockey, I'm not going to get out there. Does that make sense? If you can't label, then you can't do trig. It's like a absolutely critical step, right? If you don't learn how to crawl, you'll never, I don't know if that works. Anyways. Anywho, let's move on. Here are the ratios. Let's go to the next page. Here are the ratios for sine, cos, and tan. So you might feel like this is a little bit of magic. So, and also everybody has to check their calculator, make sure it's in degree mode, or else things get messed up. And you know, sometimes your calculator goes in your backpack and maybe it gets pressed, or maybe you accidentally press the button. So make sure you know how to go back to degree mode. And we did it in unit 1. So hopefully you still remember. It's this button usually on the scientific calculators, DRG. Okay. So what trigonometry does is it relates angles to sides. Okay, and it might feel like a little bit of magic when you go into your calculator and you type in like sine 49 and it gives you .7547, and I always just go to 4 digits. Like, what is 0.7547? That means no matter what triangle it is, whether it's the size of Jupiter or the size of an ant, no matter what triangle it is, if the angle's 49 degrees in a right triangle, if the angle's 49, the ratio of the opposite side divided by the hypotenuse side is always going to be this number. So it guarantees for us a way of always being able to solve for the side. So like back in the day, the Greeks, a natural question is, how far away are we from the moon? Or how big is the planet? Or how far are we from this distant land? Okay? And you can use some very basic trigonometry principles to get very, very good approximations to those big questions. So how far are we from Europe? How far away are we? So you can use a little basic trig and you can approximate that just by knowing angles. Okay, so let's get started. Number 1, and you can put a big title on this. Pythagorean theorem. And after marking your test, I know that most of you can do this. Some of you still cannot. So I will review it one more time. When you have two sides and no angle, you can use c squared equals a squared plus b squared. Okay, so that's how you know when to use it, when you have two sides and no angle. And they're asking you for the third side. Okay? For the Pythagorean theorem, you only have two choices. Is it solving for a long side or is it solving for a short side? Okay, do you guys remember that? Okay, so everybody knows that the hypotenuse is the long side and the other two legs are the short sides. So for part A, what are they asking us to solve for? Long or short? Long. And in part B, long or short? Short. Okay. So you see all this business here, all this work? We don't need to do that. We only need to do here. That's all you need to type into your calculator. Okay? So this is for long. And hopefully this is already in your study sheet or your formula sheet. To solve for long, it's always c equals square root sign, bracket. And what that does is it puts this square root sign over everything. All right, so you hit the square root button, you open up a bracket, and what that does is it extends this sign, and you go short side squared plus other short side squared, close the bracket, hit enter. Okay? You guys already have that shortcut somewhere on a formula sheet for you to remember, I hope. Do you have a question? Yes, you can get a drink. You need to be fast, though. Yeah, is this wrong? 23 is wrong, right? I agree. I got 17.04. Okay, so just make that change so that you're not looking at the book saying, what the heck? So this book has a few mistakes, and I'm already aware that this book sometimes has some mistakes. All right, now for part B. And this solution must be on the next page, probably. Yeah? Okay, so let's do part B right next to this. So you can just jot this down for part B. What's the formula for the short Pythagorean? It would have to be a short side, so A or B. A equals, good, c squared minus b squared. You always start with the big number. Because what happens when you subtract? What is small number take away a bigger number? Is that negative? And then you cannot square root negatives. The calculator will say error. So just put the big number first. Okay, so looking above, what's the big number? 9.3. So start the little square root sign. 9.3 squared take away 4.3 squared. And use brackets if you have a scientific calculator. And I'm getting 8.24. And do you notice that it's smaller than the hypotenuse? 9.3. So this seems reasonable. 8.24. Okay. So for trigonometry, you also need to know the two types of Pythagorean theorem. Okay, so I just put that on the board as well. And I've showed this like 5 times now this semester, so hopefully it's starting to catch on that you just need the shortcut. All right. Okay. If you look at example 1, it says solve the triangles. Does everybody see that? So what does it mean to solve a triangle? What does it mean to solve a triangle? You need all sides, all angles. That's what it means. Okay? So what do we have so far? Do we have all the sides? Yes. Now what do we need? The angles. Okay. So let's work on angle A in question A. All right. We're going to try to figure out angle capital A here in question A. So let's use the 2 sides that they gave us, 7.5 and 15.3. If you go straight across, what label is 7.5 to A? Op. And we know that this up here is the hypotenuse, so this 15.3 must be the adjacent. So if you look at the whiteboard, what do you need when you're solving for angles? Primary or secondary function? Everybody catch that? Secondary function. Now depending on your calculator, this is super easy. So which formula does the op and the adj? Op and the adj. Which one? See how sine and cos use hypotenuse and tan does not? I don't know if you can see that with my thing in the way. See how tangent does op and adj only? So you have to choose tangent. So you write it like this. Tan with a little -1 bracket. Now which one goes first? Op or adj? Op. So 7.5 divided by 15.3. And that will equal, so we're just focused right there. I zoomed it in for you. Right, so there's a whole bunch of decimals involved. So how many decimals do you need? At most 1. Like when it comes to degrees, degrees are very accurate. Often I just go to the nearest degree, often. Okay, so this is 26 down here in the corner. This guy here is 26. Now does anybody know how many, Marlon, does anybody know how many degrees the angles in a triangle add up to? 180. Christian has that locked in his brain. Everyone else needs to lock that in their brain, okay? I'm going to put that on the board somewhere. Wherever, I'll put it up here. All angles in a triangle add to 180. Okay, so once you jot that down, you can look at the board. How much is this angle that I'm pointing at that's not showing up on the board? There it is. How much is this one worth? 90. How much is this one worth? 26. So what does this missing piece need to be so that it adds up to 180? Okay, so Christian worked ahead and he probably used subtraction. Did you use subtraction? Did you subtract from 180 or did you subtract from 90? Yeah, good. So he's a little bit ahead of the game. He knows that since this is already 90, what's 180 take away 90? 90. So what do the two acute angles always add up to? Yeah, these two have to be 90 because this piece is already 90. And there's always going to be a 90. So the other two have to add up to 90. So if this is 26, this is 64. What if this one was 89? What would the other one be? 1. What if this one was 70? This one would be 20. Do you guys remember what that's called when two angles add up to 90? Starts with C. This is 10-3. No? Nobody remembers? Okay, it's complementary. Complementary angles, yeah. Do you remember what they're called if they add up to 180? Supplementary, good. Okay, now let's try this other question, part B. Do you guys want to solve for angle S or solve for angle T? Do you want to do T because it's up in the corner and it might be different? Let's try that one, okay? Let's try angle T right off the bat. Josh, you with us? Coulter? Okay. How about Khalif? Are you with us? Okay. You're not focused on your iPad? Can you turn it over, please? So it's face down, please. Thank you, sir. Okay. So I'm going to find angle T. Straight across from angle T is 4.3. That label is wake up. That side is 4.3 is, come on, yell it out. Not you. You yell too much. You're too good. Same with Christian. You're going to keep your answers to yourself. And Abigail, please, because it gives everybody else a chance. Okay. 4.3 is? Good, Caitlin. Opposite. Opposite T. And 9.3 is hypotenuse, so nobody yell this one out. S. Mackenzie, what is S? What label? Attaboy. Adjacent. Okay. Which two sides do we know from the question? Op and hype. We know S. We figured it out, but let's just pretend we're starting from scratch. So which formula does op and hype? Some people say sin, some people say sine. What's the proper word for this one? Sine. Okay. Sin is the abbreviation, and we never say sin. If you say sin, people might think you're not talking about the right stuff. So always just sine. You know you're talking about something and you say the wrong thing, it's kind of embarrassing. That would be an instant of that. So you don't want to say sin x. People would think maybe you don't know what's going on. So say sine. And when we're trying to solve for the angle, we use primary or secondary? Primary or secondary when we want the angle? Secondary. So put the -1 up here. And then we put a bracket in our calculator with divide in between because it's all about the ratios. And opposite on top of hypotenuse in that order. Opposite is 4.3, hypotenuse is 9.3. Type that into your calculator, please, everybody, so that you get familiar with the keystrokes. Everybody should be typing now. Okay? Please type. If you don't have a calculator, please come get one. You get used to pressing the buttons while I'm teaching, and then you'll 27.5. So let's round that up to 28, please. Round it up. You can go get one. Yeah, it's in that drawer. All right. So if this angle up here is 28, how do we get this missing angle? Subtract from 90. 90 take away 28 is 62. Now, when you're doing trigonometry for the first time, it may seem like magic. It may seem like there's a lot of stuff going on. But in my history of teaching high school math, which is not that long, only like 5 years, and I've taught all levels, 10, 20, and 30, trigonometry seems to be the #1 topic that everybody can get 100% at. I've seen, the smartest kids and the not so smartest kids all do well in trigonometry. This seems to be something that kids really get. So give it an honest shot, and I think that it'll go okay. For some reason, trig, kids get trig, okay? So Christian is sort of mentioning an acronym that most people remember. It's called SOHCAHTOA. And like you could probably ask your parents, like, what's one thing you remember from high school math? They might mention SOHCAHTOA. A lot of people know this. So just like the IRS stands for something like Internal Revenue Agency in the United States, or like the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Jeez. SOHCAHTOA is similar to that. Sine is the op divided by the hype. Cos is the adj divided by the hype. And tan is the op divided by the adj. So everybody can remember SOHCAHTOA. Okay. Did these guys get completely different answers than us? So please cross those out. I don't know what this book is doing. Just this book, this page. Okay. So SOHCAHTOA. Alright, so we're going to start off slow. Build your skills 1. I'm going to pause the video. I'm going to let you try this. And I'm going to walk around and I'm going to help. Okay. Okay, let's put up the solutions to this page. Alright. So tan theta will be equal to opposite divided by adjacent. So tan theta in this case will be 0.6422. To get theta, you have to do second function tan of that ratio. And you end up with like 32.7, so I'm going to round it up to 33. Okay. 4 decimals for the ratio, and I'm happy with no decimals for the angle. Okay. Notice that the ratio has no units. Okay? But the theta is in degrees, okay? Sine theta for the next question, if you find it, is opposite 1.8 divided by hypotenuse 2.3. 1.8 divided by 2.3 is 0.7826. To find theta, you'd use second function sine of that answer. $51.5, which I'm going to round to 52. I used all the decimals, so I might be slightly more accurate. If you get 51, I'm okay with that. Okay, cos theta is the adjacent side divided by hypotenuse. So 7.75 is across the 90, so it's the hype. And you can see 5.5 is adjacent to theta. And if English is not your first language, or you just don't know what adjacent means means next to. So you see it right now? Everybody look at me, Mackenzie. We're buddies, right? Bumping shoulders. He's adjacent to me. You know, like when you got a next door neighbor? That house would be adjacent to you on the block. But what about across the street, across the crescent in your neighborhood? Now he's opposite me, okay? Alright, so those of you that just got back from the exam, hopefully you're being quiet and waiting for me patiently. Actually, those of you that just got back from the test, can you please copy down the whiteboard? It'll be your cheat sheet for the entire unit, okay? Alright, so there's the cosine ratio for this triangle. Second function cos of that answer, and I got 44.79. I'm going to round that up, 45 degrees. All right, very nice. Just need help? Okay. Okay, folks, one more question at the bottom. If you look at this question at the bottom, what's it asking for? Everybody, what's it asking for? Is that a side or an angle? H. That's a side. Do you have any angles given to you? No angles given. And it wants a side. It wants this third side. So what situation is this? No angles, but it wants a side. You would get this question in grade 8. What would you learn in grade 8? Pythagorean. So never, because I'm teaching you sine, cos, tan, you're sometimes going to forget, oh yeah, I can still use Pythagorean. Something you already know from back in the day. Okay? So what happens is you know Pythagorean, but you forget when to use it or that you even can use it. You forget because I'm teaching you all this new stuff. So don't forget you can always use Pythagorean. Is this a long side or a short side? H is short or long side? Guys, yell it out. Short. Good. Abdi Karim got it. Short. How do I know it's the short one? Because it's not the hypotenuse. The shortcut for the short side would be the square root of the long side squared, take away the other short side squared, all in a bracket under that square root sign. Remember that? All right, so Noelle said 16.7. Thank you, Noelle. And the unit would be degrees or centimeters? Centimeters, because it's a side. When I'm marking your test and I'm asking you to solve for angle, and then you put centimeter, it tells me you don't know anything. And then I dock you a mark for not knowing what the heck's going on. Okay? I reward students who try things that make sense, and I penalize for things that make no sense. Okay? All right. See this new skills, trigonometric ratios in complex situations? How much did this book give you as a warm-up? 1 page, barely nothing. Do you guys want more of a warm-up? Or do you want to just jump right in? So tomorrow, do you want me to jump right in? Hands up if you want me to just jump right in to hard stuff. Okay. How many you want a warm-up? Okay. If you feel that you don't need the warm-up, everyone look at Christian. He probably loves when everybody just gives him the spot of attention. He's working ahead because this stuff's too easy for him. So if that's you, you're good at trig, work ahead. But tomorrow I will provide a warm-up outside of the blue book. Is that fair? Okay, if you just came back from the test There's a worksheet here for practicing labeling, so you can grab that. Seth, Mustafa, Math. Anybody else?